Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 95 of the I Rock Knits podcast. It is April 25th, Sunday afternoon, and I am recording so that I can edit tomorrow. I've got a new pattern coming out. I have a lot of stuff to tell you. I just got home from teaching in Colorado, in Loveland, at the Yarnfest, which was an awesome time, and I just really didn't want to come back to windy, still cool Minnesota. When we landed in Denver, it was 80 degrees on Tuesday afternoon, and we haven't seen temperatures like that forever. We didn't even have short sleeve shirts to pack out yet. So anyway, I had a wonderful time, and I'm going to tell you all about that. Welcome. If you are new today, welcome. I think I have some new people viewing because I talked about my podcast when I was at Yarnfest, and I handed out some informational cards, so we might have some new folks here who have never been here before. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. And for those of you who have been with me since the very beginning, will you let me know in the comments down below? I would just like to thank you personally. If you were there for the first couple of episodes where I had a lot to learn, made a lot of mistakes, didn't really know what I was doing with editing, still don't know what I'm doing with editing, just doing it on my iPad, just recording and using a little iMovie. I edit a lot because I get up and move around. I can't sit for an entire hour and a half to 2 hours of talking, so I edit. It gets a little choppy, but I do my best, and most of you have been okay with that, and if you've stuck with me from the very beginning, thank you. What am I wearing today? Well, I have a little surprise underneath this, but this is a Pippin Poncho. It is my pattern that came out a year ago, and this is knit in Emma's yarn. Emma from Florida, who was a young girl who did, I think, like a school or homeschool, I'm not sure, project of some kind for dyeing yarn. It became very popular. Now it's a whole family business. We met her and her father at Rhinebeck, and this was Shop Pop yarn from 2 years ago or longer. Gosh, 2019 maybe. In this lovely yellow, which is kind of blowing out with the light that we have there. It's kind of tonal. It's got little blips of orange and yellow, and it just made me feel like sunshine today. How I feel about everyone should have a yellow shawl. That's my thought, in the depths of spring when things are still gray and brown and muddy. It is nice to pull out something yellow. So get yourself a yellow shawl, a yellow scarf, something so that you can kind of revel in that is spring. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I'm wearing today. But I have to show you right up front here what I found on the internet. I have lots of things to share in this category this week. And the first thing that I found was this t-shirt. And I'm not a big t-shirt person. I think maybe I've even talked about that. Graphic tees are not my jam. I think they're fun. I think having a fun slogan or logo on a graphic tee is fun, but it's just not what I would normally choose to wear. But I had to buy this when I saw it on the internet. Are you guys ready? It says, ban the beige. No beige for me. No gray for me. Right? Oh, I just thought it was great. It is by Poppikins. I'll see if I can show you this too. Poppekins. It came from the UK. It was just the price of like a t-shirt, and I put it on my mannequin because I thought, next time I'm going to podcast with it on my mannequin. Well, I have so much on the mannequins today that I'm even going to have to stop halfway through and add something because I've got 2 of the shawl samples that we're going to talk about. So I decided I'd just throw my Pippin Poncho over it. The Pippin Poncho is made in 1 long rectangle and 1 short rectangle that you just seam along the edge here. Super simple. If you are right hand dominant and you wear the more of the opening on the right hand, it allows you to move quite a bit. It hangs down and covers all of the important parts if you are a leggings person. So yeah, it's with, I originally knit it with Knit Circus last year. And it is a DK weight. Works up pretty quickly because it's the same stitch pattern. You do a bunch of kind of lace yarn overs on the way over, and you can set those apart by stitch markers, and then, it's just It's pretty simple. It's a simple pattern. I'm going to have a couple in other colors, I think, too, just so that I can throw them on my way out the door. When I was in Denver, it would have been a perfect thing for the evening, right? You have something on, but then you go to a restaurant where there's air conditioning, or you just want to have one in the car because when you get out of the car, it might have gotten cooler. And you can just throw it over your head, but still have something on that you knit. So I think it took about 3 skeins of DK. Yeah, I think that's right. Maybe 4, but I don't think so. And tons of positive ease. It just goes on over. Just throw it on. I know people are kind of anti-poncho, but I'm kind of pro-poncho. Gotta be pro-poncho these days, right? So, found it on the internet. You can go take a look if you want to join the band, the beige. I just thought it was perfect for me, right? My orange loving heart. My bright color, lime green loving heart, raspberry, bright raspberry loving heart, all the things. So I have a recipe that we are making today. Do you have leftover soup? Ham? Do you have leftover ham for soup? If you celebrated Easter, oftentimes, sometimes too, Christmas, people make a ham. And I had about 3 or 4 different ham and bean soup recipes that I would just kind of fudge with right over time and just try to get up the consistency that I wanted. If you are my age, you may have grown up with Campbell's bean and ham soup, which is full of garbage, right? It's full of additives and salt, but I have fond memories of ham and bean soup, which probably didn't have a whole lot of ham in it, but it's a thicker consistency. And so now I've kind of gathered my own recipe. So I'm going to just tell you what I throw in the pot so that you can know, and I'll put it in the recipe thread in the show notes, which are in the iRock Knits group on Ravelry. A quarter of an onion, 4 stalks of celery, garlic, clove, salt, pepper, sage, oregano, cream of mushroom soup. You can either use the cans or make your own. There are lots of recipes on time. Or you can use bouillon cubes or 2 large dollops of that condensed chicken stock from Penzeys, which is the best. Like adding that to anything that's going to have any type of sauce. The chicken stock, the bouillon puree comes in a little jar. They have it in beef, pork, chicken, and keep it in the fridge. And it's like a paste. You just scoop it out. Oh, it adds so much flavor. So some cans of water, some chicken broth, some carrots, the asparagus tips, butter beans, northern beans, ham. There you go. Dump it all in. Then at the end, I put a little cornstarch slurry in the water to thicken it up. That's what I found has been the best for me. Now, if you have a ham bone, you can boil your ham bone for a while and make your own pork broth, which sometimes I save in the freezer. Will just, boil chicken bones or whatever, keep in my freezer in baggies, so that I have that. I don't have to buy chicken broth or ham, whatever I have. So I think I've got some pork base in the fridge right now from Penzeys, penzeys.com. It's a spice and blend, company. They do all that kind of stuff. Really good spices. So we're making bean and ham soup today. We had leftover ham, then we went to Colorado, we came home, and I said, we should really use that up. We should just cut it up into small pieces and throw it in the pot. It was one of those spiral hams, which I don't love, but they were on sale. We didn't celebrate Easter at home, so we made it just on that Sunday because we went to the big brunch. My parents came to town on Saturday. We went out to dinner in St. Paul at the St. Paul Grill. If you're at all familiar, it's kind of hoity-toity. But my husband really likes the service and likes that special feeling that you have if you're going for an event. So it was my birthday the week before on Tuesday, or coming up on Tuesday. So they were here Saturday night, so we went. And when we got there, Kylie and Stevie were there, and they surprised me, and that was really fun. And then they brought me a creme brulee for dessert with a little candle in it, which was really nice. And then right away turned around Sunday morning, went to church, and then went to big brunch, right? Big buffet brunch with Kylie and Stevie, my mom and dad. And it was the coincidence of all coincidences happened when we were out to brunch. So I'm going to tell this little tiny Cori story right here at the beginning. We went in. Mom is, having difficulty walking. She had that car accident. She's got some big knots on the left side of her leg because she got really bruised in March. And so her leg is really stiff and bothering her. So Ross drops us off. We go in. We get our table. We're early. So we sit down. I don't know. It's 10 o'clock maybe. And the kids aren't there yet. So we're like just visiting. We're sitting there. And they're bringing around whatever, mimosas and Bloody Marys and that kind of thing. They've got the big buffet set up in this bar. We're at Jimmy's Kitchen, if you're local. And here come the kids. And we've been visiting for 20 minutes. Our reservation was until 10:30. And Stevie's coming around the table, and he turns and he looks at this tall woman that is getting through the space between two tables. And he was like, Molly? And he looked at this, and he's like, that's my cousin. And then he looked down, and he was like, those are my parents. And sitting at the table right beside me, with his back to me, is Sammy's brother, who I have met once in a parking lot when we were trading cars several years ago. But we have never met my daughter's boyfriend's parents because of the pandemic. We had set up to have a meeting with them. And then when the pandemic happened, we've never gotten together. Now, the kids met at church camp. So their family attends the church we attend. It's a big Lutheran church and liberal Lutheran church. I'm not a member of Missouri Synod or Wisconsin Synod. It's ELCA. And so the kids met there. So we could have seen his parents in church on Sunday, but it's a big church. We have one of the biggest churches, I think, I don't know, in the area and maybe in the Midwest. So there they were. So my parents, his mom and dad, his aunt and uncle, his cousins, his grandpa, all get up, right? Everyone's going to meet. We're all going to meet right now. So it was really funny. If I would have seen Sammy's face, I would have recognized him. But every time I looked over, someone when they had to walk between the chairs, between where my mom was sitting and where Sammy was sitting, there wasn't a lot of room. And so I would glance over. So I probably looked at his back 10 times and had no idea. And they were just finishing up. And Stevie had no idea that they were going out to brunch because he and Kylie had planned to spend Easter dinner with them later in the day. So they were with us in the morning, and then they were going to his house in the evening. And so his grandpa was there, and he's 90-something and still lives alone. And my parents, I mean, who would have thought, right? Like, the restaurant's not small. The chances that we could have passed, going in and out at a different time, all of that. So anyway, the brunch was great. We came home. My parents wanted to rest, and so then everybody took a nap. And then we just put this ham in a bag in the oven, right? It just seemed like the thing to do is just make the ham, have ham sandwiches for supper. And so that's what we did. So now I've got this rest of this leftover ham because we really only ate the one meal with it. And then we just left it in the fridge. So there you go. A whole Cori stories wrapped up in a recipe. I don't know if I've ever done that before. Let's be honest, I've probably done that before, right? I have probably told a recipe, given a recipe, and then had a story to tell about it. I'm sure I have. I have only 2 audiobooks this week. Let's do them quite quickly. Calling Me Home by Julie Kibler. One of the best ones I've read this year. I loved it. A elderly woman living in Texas gets her hair done by a young African-American girl for about 10 years. They kind of become friends. This woman has a story. She has a history. She asks this hairdresser to take her on a trip to go to a funeral. Someone has passed. And on the road, she tells the story of what happened to her and how things have changed. You also find out the backstory of this other woman. It was really well done. They're on this road trip. The woman is like 90. She has some secrets, some things to tell. So fascinating. Really, really good book. Calling Me Home. Highly recommend. right before we left, I started the book, The Women of Chauteau Lafayette by Stephanie Dray, and it is a 24-hour audiobook. And I was behind because one that I finished for last time, and then the Calling Me Home book, I am well into the hold on this book. So I have 24 hours of listening to do in a shorter period of time, right? Because it was due back yesterday. I listened and listened. I listened on the plane, coming home. I listened when we were out there just a little bit, but I was pretty busy. And so I had like 6 hours left, and I kept getting the update from Libby. You have 1 day, 2 days left. Do you want to place a hold? You have 1 day left. Do you want to place a hold? Well, if you place a hold, it puts you back in the queue to get the book, which can be days. It can be days or weeks before you get it back again. So you kind of have to know that you're not going to get it finished. And so yesterday, I went to Taco John's because someone gifted me a gift card. Thank you, friend. To go to Taco John's. So when we got home, I called Kylie. She needed to come over and show us some stuff, some things that she has going on the computer. Long story, but she has really this kind of interesting thing going on, this invitation to something, and she wasn't sure about it or what it was anyway. So she wanted to come over and tell us, and so I said, do you want to go to Taco John's with me? So she met me down there at Taco John's, and on the way down, I listened to the book, and then on the way back, I was like, okay, I'm going to get this done today, right? They took the book back. On my drive, I was like, shouldn't it be midnight? Shouldn't it be midnight of that day? I'm sure it goes by the time you checked it out, right? So it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. My book is gone. And I had like 5 hours left. I was mad. So then I went over to Audible and bought it. So I just went and bought it. Finished listening. Because, you're all in. You're all in on it. So, The Women of Chauteau Lafayette. Excellent, detailed books. If you like the books by like Erik Larson, where there's lots of research done and there's so much information, there are 3 main characters that play a role, and then there are 3 different narrators that read the story of the women. And I will give you a little bit of background here. It has to do with the castle, Lafayette. 1774. Gently bred noblewoman Adrienne Lafayette becomes her husband, the Marquis de Lafayette's political partner in the fight for American independence. Number 1, Adrienne. 1914, glittering New York socialite Beatrice Chandler is a force of nature, daunted by nothing, not her humble beginnings, her crumbling marriage, or the outbreak of war. Number 2, Beatrice. Number 3, French school teacher and aspiring artist Marthe Simone has an orphan's self-reliance and wants nothing to do with war. 1940. So we have 3 eras going on, 1774, 1914, and 1940, and then the women tell a chapter at a time. So you go in. I couldn't keep the women straight for the first 6 chapters. I was like, what era am I in? I have to listen carefully at the beginning of the chapter to know which woman and which year it is. But then the narrators do such a good job of making a character that you know which one is speaking and where you're at in the story. I mean, they really make it clear. It was really nice that they did it with 3 different narrators, kind of, so you had these voices to kind of go by. And so then I stayed up last night and then I finished listening to it. It was excellent, but 24 hours, I mean, it's a big book. It's going to be one of those books that people either love because it never ends, right? The stories go on and on. Was fascinating. It's all about Lafayette and how he helped America and had this castle and all of the terrible and horrific things that happened in the different wars throughout the years, where they harbor children and they protect Jewish people and during the war. So and then this New York woman, they go back and forth, and then they open it as like a crematorium, meaning a hospital, where they take care of sick children. It's amazing, all the things, and it's a actual story. She's basing it in true facts. It's not nonfiction, however. She's telling the story the best she can. Really well done. Highly recommend. Okay, while I was at Yarnfest, I purchased some cards from Joanna Johnson. And Joanna Johnson is an author. Her husband is an illustrator. I have seen her stuff around for years. She has written, I think, 6 books. Phoebe's Sweater, Freddie's Blanket, Phoebe's Birthday, and then she's got Henry's Hat. Then she did Green Gable Knits, Sherlock Knits, Little Women Knits, and Emma Knits. So she did some pattern books as well. She also writes Harlequin romances. But she was at Yarnfest in a booth, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go over and talk to her. And we got to talking, and she offered to have my book in her booth. They did not allow me to sell my books in the classroom. You're not allowed to sell anything or kind of promote your stuff, just to keep it kind of free of that. And so I didn't have a place, so I did a demo in the market on Thursday, and then I could sell my books. But it was a half an hour, and then it was done. So if someone was in class, they couldn't come get a book from me. So if you're watching and you're one of those people, you can go to my website and buy the softcover book at any time, and it'll just be shipped out to you. Or you can buy the PDF online. But I did have people in my classes say that they would stop by. So I was just telling her that, she had this lovely little booth with all these little books and children's books and these little creatures, and then the knitting books, and she had cards and she had prints of her husband's stuff. And then she said, had I known, do you think we would get in trouble if I took some of your books? And we hadn't set anything up, and she doesn't know me. So I thought, I'm not going to ask you to, right now set up taking book payments for me. And I was leaving. If I would have been staying, I would have stood in someone's booth all weekend and sold my books. But anyway, so I bought these cards. I thought they were darling. She has a website. I thought it would be fun to just share. It's the only thing I purchased while I was there. Really try hard not to buy yarn when I'm working. I can buy yarn when I'm shopping, I'm going other places, but when I go to work and I get a paycheck, I don't want that paycheck to go all away, because you pay for your travel and your hotel and your meals and your rental car, and then you have nothing left for yarn either. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with all of you. Let's look at the sweater of the week this week. I've had this on the mannequin for 2 weeks and just kept taking it off because I had so much to talk about, and finally I was like, just talk about this sweater. This used to be the first sweater I showed in every one of my sweater classes because it started with A, and they're alphabetized. So this is the Aslan cabled wrap jacket, ASLAN. But it came out again, it was like republished by the designer. It's called the Narvik, Narvik. So if you're going out to look for it, it's a really nice warm wool cardigan. So I was wondering why it was named Narvik, and Narvik is the 3rd largest municipality in Nordland County, Norway by population. So it's a town, which I had no idea about until now, even though I knit this many years ago. It came out in 2007. It's by Marie Wallin. And if you're a Marie Wallin fan, you know that she designs beautiful, well-written patterns, lovely designs, some interesting construction, quite a bit of color work. Anyway, and it came out in Vogue Knitting in their holiday issue, but it was also in Rowan issue 42, which if you get that big, beautiful Rowan magazine, you might recognize this. It's knit for bulky, but it's 17 stitches in 4 inches. So, it's like that Aran, it can make that Aran weight cut off on a size 10.5 needle, so it works up really quickly. But the thing that I enjoyed about this piece is that you knit panels. You start here and you knit a panel of cable with reverse stockinette background, and then you make this panel, and then you make this panel. So you get these vertical stripes, which is really flattering on a lot of figures if that's something that you're going for. And I knit it with a yarn that had some alpaca in it, and then I had a zipper put in, and it has this little collar, stand-up collar, and it's cabled on the front, but the sleeves and the back are kind of a broken rib texture, so it's got this texture. It's a really nice sweater. If you're looking for a warm winter sweater, which is not the time of year for most of you, unless you're in the southern hemisphere, but it's a nice sweater, really well written pattern by Marie Wallen, so I would definitely recommend it. This is what she wrote. She was Rowan's in-house designer and was studying science when her right brain won out, steering her to follow her heart, a degree in knitwear design from Leicester Polytechnic. Her logical left brain is still just as active, though, as the vertical panel construction of this boxy cropped jacket attests. Long strips of various cables and colors are worked in one piece, in tarja style, in cocoon, and you can do that either way. And I learned a technique by, I want to say, Stitches Magazine. Who's the guy? Wrote a whole article on knitting across these panels, and then so that it is, you knit up one, but then you leave live stitches along the edge. I'll have to look up what that technique is and tell you guys next time. I kind of forgot about it, but I have a whole. I did a felted chest checkerboard pad with using that technique, where you go over and back, and then as you get to the edge, you knit two together with the edge seam of the previous row. So it can be knit multiple ways. You can knit your 3 panels, seam them together, knit them in intarsia going across and back, or you can do this kind of special construction method. It is basket weave stitch, loose fitting, wrap jacket with 3 color cabled. It comes in size 39 to 52. It called for Rowan cocoon yarn. There you go. Cute sweater. Would be really fun now. I mean, I knit this years and years ago. I would do it in bright colors now, and I just think it would be super fun. You could do it in red and black and gray, or cream and red and black, pink and gray, kind of those fun colors that coordinate so well together. So that'd be fun. So that's your sweater of the week. What have I been watching? Well, quickly, I'm going to tell you that I watched a movie that was really good, which is why I decided to include it this week. Rescued by Ruby. I was looking for something to watch the other night. I wanted to knit on my shawl. I wanted something that I didn't really have to pay close attention to. And this is a rescue dog who becomes a police canine search dog. And it's a true story of a man who tries to be in the canine division of the police academy. He applies and applies and applies, and it's like his 8th year, and he can't apply anymore after this, and the guy won't let him in because he's got some the guy's got some issues. They don't really come out and say that he has like ADHD or something, but you can kind of see in the movie that he's got some things, and the guy won't let him apply to be in this. So he goes to the pound and he gets a rescue dog, and he trains the rescue dog himself, and then he goes to the final day of testing with his dog, and he doesn't know if the guy's going to let him get in or not. And then Ruby becomes the canine search dog of the year, this dog that he gets as a rescue. And the dog is naughty. When they bring it home, it's been returned to the pound 3 or 4 times because the dog is so naughty, and he just sticks with him. And it was just a really feel good movie. Rescued by Ruby. I highly recommend it. And then when my parents were here on Saturday night, we wanted to just watch a little something. So I opened Netflix and I said, what have you guys watched lately? And they said, just put on anything, we don't care. And I had Heartland on the screen, and I said, have you guys watched Heartland? And they said, yeah, we've watched it, but years ago, we don't know where we left off or whatever. And I said, well, I haven't watched it either, but maybe we could pick that up. There are 14 seasons of that show. I had no idea. So I was done. I had finished season 4, so I just started season 5 with my folks, and we watched 2 or 3 that night before everybody fell asleep. So I watched Heartland with my folks, and then yesterday when Kylie came over in the afternoon after we as a family coordinated her response to this weird invitation she got to a law thing. Maybe I'll ask her if I can tell you that whole story. It's her story to tell, but I'll ask her what she thinks. Anyway, I'm like, do you want to watch something for an hour? Because Stevie was at work till 6. And she said, sure, let's put something on. So I opened up Netflix to see what either one of us had not yet watched. And the Tinder Swindler came up. And she's like, that's supposed to be good. She stayed until we watched the whole thing. And it wasn't that short. I was knitting and she was on her computer and doing some work, I think, for school. And we just kept watching and watching. Ross came in about 6:30 and he was like, are you going home? And are we going to eat supper? And I was like, we don't have a plan. I said, I thought you said you were going to the grocery store. And he's like, I can do it, but now it's gotten so late. And so anyway, we watched Tinder Swindler, which is about the dating app Tinder and these women who got swindled by this guy. And it's fascinating what what the money that he ilked out of these women and how many more and then they eventually catch him and do this whole show. But wow, it was really, really good. So I would recommend that too. Things I saw on the internet. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go through these kind of quickly. I saw a blog post from Elizabeth Smith, and she begged the question, can I machine wash my superwash yarns? And she goes into kind of a lengthy description of, superwash yarns. And this is what it says. It is from, what's the date? It's not on here. It was from a week ago, Friday. So, not this Friday. Oh, I don't know. Like, let's say around the 10th of April, maybe. A common question I receive is, can I machine wash my finished knits if I use superwash wool? She gets asked this a lot, and she wonders about knitting versus washing machine. And anyone with a non-superwash wool sweater can accidentally put it in the washer, right? We've all seen that happen before. So she decides to do an experiment where she's going to knit up some swatches and then she's going to wash them and see what happens before and after they're blocked from the washing machine. And she does this whole little thing. It's really interesting. Some of the yarns hold up better than others, and that I think would have been the first thing that I would have said. Yes, you can certainly machine wash superwash yarns, except not all superwash yarns, and not all the time superwash yarns, right? Sometimes people wash their socks in the washing machine, perfectly fine. They come out fine. They've been washing them for years, and then all of a sudden they felt. And all the superwash properties have gone away because superwash yarns are treated with chemicals to make all the fibers lay down so there's no little barbs sticking out. And then you wash that away over time, and some of that chemical product can come off, and then it can felt. So even though you have been washing something repeatedly, it can still get, and some won't get to that point. So I don't know that there's a clear-cut answer to, can you always? I mean, if you've got it on the gentle psycho sew, it's just kind of moving it around a little bit. I think you're probably okay for a lot of superwash things. But once you wet superwash yarn, it is wet, right? It is stretched out. It just becomes, you have to kind of get it back into shape when it dries. So I will link this article by Elizabeth Smith Knits. She does a Friday tip every week on her blog. Go and sign up for her newsletter. She's got some really excellent blog posts, and I always like to read the title and see what she's talking about over there. She does a really nice job of having a very informative blog featured every Friday. So I would recommend that. Okay, then I saw this. Have you guys seen these? Little sweaters for your toilet paper cover. Okay, I don't want to make a sweater for a toilet paper cover, but I do want to make a gag gift for Christmas, right? We do zonkers for Christmas gifts, and I think it would be really funny to do when you do one of those gift exchanges too, to give a roll of toilet paper with a sweater on it. I just think that would be really funny. So this is by Jimmy Bean's Wool. It's toilet paper sweaters on Ravelry. I assume that it's available on their website. Oh, I should have checked that. But anyway, I thought it was funny, so I thought I would share that with you. Then I found this little sweater. It's called Hip to Be Square. It's a kid's sweater, and I know a lot of you knit for kids. So look at the back of this. Oh, I'll put a picture in, okay? I'll put a picture in. It came out in August of 2016. It is by Strick Lisa, and it doesn't tell me here what language it is she speaks. N-O-K. What is N-O-K? Norway? I'm going to guess that. It's in DK. An all-year unisex jacket with fun squares on the backside. The technique is thoroughly described in the pattern. The jacket is knit top down and shaping is done as you go. It's knit in one piece only, and the only thing you have to do after knitting is to fasten the buttons and the loose ends. So it is kind of a top-down raglan with these really cute colors on the back. I just thought it was a darling idea. You could use scraps. You could use the kids' favorite color. It doesn't say how many sizes, but it says 1 to 10/12 years. So I don't know if that's 1, 3, 5, 7 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Like I don't know how many sizes they did it up in. But it's on a 2.5, 4, and 6 needle. A ton of people have made it. I thought it was really, really cute. So that's another pattern. Then there was a newspaper article that maybe some of you saw called "Why This Holocaust Survivor Wears the Same Hand Knit Sweater Every Passover." And this woman, Helena Weinstock, wears this blue sweater every single year for Passover, and there's a whole story about it. I will link the article in case you want to go over and read it. Every Passover for the last 75 years, 97-year-old Holocaust survivor has worn a vibrant blue hand-knit sweater to the first Seder, which her neighbor hosts in the Upper West Side apartment building. The sweater is chic, 1940s number with fluffy Angora sleeves, a sparkling metallic blue bodice, and a delicate scalloped V neck. But this is no ordinary fashion statement. The sweater was knit by Helena's friend, Anne, who stayed alive during the Holocaust by knitting for Nazi wives while a prisoner in the Lotz ghetto. Rothman was motivated to survive, and as Weinrauch tells it, she became known in the ghetto. She was so good at knitting that she knitted coats for the wife of the German people, and it became known that Anne could knit skirts, a blouse, anything you want, she could knit it. And so this is an article written by Tanya Singer, and it goes on to tell the story of this sweater and where it came from. And then that took me down the rabbit hole, and I have shared this before, but of that little red sweater, the girl in the blue sweater was one, and then there's this little red sweater that they found, this little dress that they found, and then they had it made into a knitted sweater because the original one was crochet. And it says, in 2017, Tanya Singer found herself in need of refuge after watching her son survive brain surgery. To cope, she turned to an unlikely source, knitting. The former general manager of a corporate media company was renewed and replenished by the healing powers of the age-old handiwork. She never now goes a day without knitting, and her husband jokes there is not one room in the house without knitting supplies. So there's a whole story there about the little red sweater as well. Singer says her research began 2 years ago after she read an article about the girl in the blue sweater, which is what the Helena was, or Helena. And that's what started me going down this rabbit hole of mine of knitting in the Holocaust. The symbol of Singer's project is a little red dress, which originally belonged to a woman named Judy, whose family fled the Nazi regime. The dress is one of the many knit garments she discovered through her research of handmade items that helped women to resist, remember, and renew their lives after the atrocities of World War II. So really interesting articles. I will link them in the show notes down below, right down here. You can click on the little arrow if you're looking at me down here. And just click through the link if I can link it. Otherwise, it's in the show notes in the Ravelry group, and so you can go over there and take a look at it. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting enough article that I should share it. Two more real quick. I saw these socks on Instagram. Can you even believe that someone's knitting that. No, that someone designed that. The knitting wouldn't be all that hard. Oh, some people are so creative, right? These, I think, are called the Emily socks. The person who's knitting them may be calling them the Emily socks. I could not find the pattern yet. It's in Novita magazine, which comes out of Finland. And so the Novita magazine, I think for spring 2022, just came out. And this woman's post that I follow on Instagram was in Finnish. So I had to translate it, and then I went and looked them up. But I didn't see them on Ravelry, and my guess is they're in the magazine, and you could get the magazine online, but that the designer probably doesn't get the pattern back until after the magazine's been out for a while. I just thought they were fantastic. You have to be such an artist to figure that out, right? Those faces. Wow. Really cool. Even if I never knit them, I'm going to go in and once they come on Ravelry, I will go favorite them just so give them some love. I thought that was really cute. I was cleaning out patterns. As all of you know, I'm cleaning out yarn and patterns at my house and trying to just get some things organized this spring, especially since our weather's been so windy and so cool. We've had tons of rain and sleet. I think my husband said it's the coldest April on record. If we keep up this, it's incredible how cool it has been. But I found this sweater, and it is so cute. And it's in a book called Kids, Kids, Kids. And it's all those cables are knit in white. And then you go back in afterwards and run the colors up. So it would be super painstaking to make, to use the contrast colors. But if you like to stitch, I think it would be fascinating to stitch that. I really want it in a big person's size. The book is Kids, 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 40 Winning Patterns from the Knitters Magazine, January of 1999, by Anne Regis. You can still get the book used online. It had 40 patterns in it. Fantastic knits and fantastic toys. Funtastic knits and fantastic toys, it said. And this was one of the winners of a children's sweater contest. Well, and it should have won, right? Look at how cute that is. I might have to do a yoke with that on it or something. I don't know. It came out in 1999, so, 20-some years ago. I couldn't find the designer. And the book is probably under my cabinet, so I have to dig the actual book out. There you go. All the things I saw on the internet that I have to tell you about. Because you're my friends, and I feel like if I was talking to you in real life, I'd say, hey, have you seen this? Okay, I'm going to do a little swap out of shawls, and I'll be right back. Okay, my shawl pattern is going live. I'm so excited to share this with you. This is the Legacy Park shawl. I collaborated with the local yarn store to me, Be at Lakeside. Their quote or their tagline is "There's no place I'd rather be," and it is Bridget and Elizabeth B.E., who recently purchased the yarn store right before the pandemic, and so it has been a struggle for them because if you're starting a new business and then the pandemic happens, you're hating it, that's hard stuff. So they asked me way back in the fall, maybe November, they asked me to come in for a meeting and sit down with them and talk about whether or not I would do a design for them for Shop Hop. And I wasn't sure that I really wanted to do it. I thought that they should just write up their own pattern. They had an idea of what they wanted it to look like and how they wanted it to be. And I said, if you have all the ideas, you should just write it up. And Bridget is the kind of pro knitter at the shop, and Elizabeth is the crocheter. They do have gifts in that shop, but they convinced me that I should actually do it. It was a bit of a journey for them and for me because they'd never published a pattern before. They'd never done a shop hop before. Bridget had always worked in the store, but she'd never been on an actual shop hop. So there was a lot of discussion and talk about how to make it work and what colors we wanted to purchase, what yarn we wanted to use. They found a yarn that they fell in love with, and I said I won't do gray, and Bridget is a neutral I love a lot of people who are neutrals, but it is not me. And she had a gray and blue, a gray and green, and I was like, I just can't do it. We have to. And Elizabeth is much more pop of color, and so they decided to purchase 4 colorways. So I'll put a picture in of the 4 colorways that they chose to have on the Shop Hop. The Shop Hop went Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 12 stores. You travel around. I had a video in last time, but they sold out of yarn. By the second day, when I ran in at the end of the day to see how things were going, the yarn was gone. They had no more yarn. They had ordered maybe 300 skeins of yarn, maybe even more. There was a lot of yarn. So I was tickled for them, because that's the pattern doesn't really matter at the Shop Hop. You're just showing off the yarn. You want people to purchase the yarn. That's why they're having the Shop Hop. That's why they want to actually have people come into the shop so that they can make some sales right here early in the spring and kind of get them through the slow summer months. And they use speckled finch yarns, and she did custom colorways for them of several of the colors were actually custom, so you will not be able to purchase them. They ran out, so they took pre-orders. The pre-ordered yarn is being dyed right now and then shipped out. It should arrive any time, and then they will ship it out to anybody who pre-ordered, and they ordered a couple extra skeins, but not a lot. So I don't know that you will be able to get this or won't be able to get it. But Bridget, my friend Bridget, who works there, had recently lost her mother and her son, and they kind of wanted to do a little honoring of that. And the theme for the Shop Hop was the state parks. And Bridget's son loved hiking and loved the mountains, and his mom loved flowers. And so we picked a inspiration picture of flowers with a mountain in the background to kind of go with the theme. And they wanted me to kind of interpret that the best I could. So I'll take this one down. This is the original prototype yarn, and it is a little more muted than the final yarn. We asked the yarn dyer to bump up the color a little bit, and I'll show you the one that I currently have on the needles in a minute. But as you can see, there's tons of color in here, and I did little flower rows. So that's just little flowers, about every 12 rows or so. And then at the bottom, we just did some real simple chevron mountains. The edges of the shawl are all done in kind of an I-cord, flat I-cord. And the bottom as well. So I'll see if I can show that I-cord down there. And it uses 2 skeins of sport weight yarn. So the fingering weight yarn that Speckled Finch sent was really thin. It was that thin 463 yard, which still doesn't always make the best sized shawl. So we decided to go with her sport weight. You can certainly make this shawl in fingering, no problem. I had several testers do that, so they will be up on the Ravelry pages. You'll be able to see pictures of what they did. Some of them used a solid or tonal color and then a contrasting color for these flowered rows that are in there so that they have just a tiny little stripe in them. But I knit my original prototype, which is this one, up in the pink colorway, and the colorway was called She Walks in the Light. That was the name of the colorway. That is kind of the pink, and then it has lime green and purple, but it mostly reads as a pink shawl, lots of little speckles in it. So then Bridget really wanted to have a muted colorway, and so she ordered kind of a gray and blue, a gray and green, and then kind of a honey colored with just really light speckles in it. You will have seen that in the colorways. And I just thought that there was too much gray and not enough color. So we also asked the yarn dyer to pump up the color on this one. And when it came back, it got shipped directly to Stacy, because Stacy knit this sample because she's so fast. And so she did pump up the blue. So it is a gray shawl with blue, but I don't think that it's too gray, right? It doesn't offend my sensibilities. It's just really lovely. So you could use any speckled yarn. You could use a solid, a tonal. You could use a highly variegated yarn. It's just that those little flower rows that happen don't show up quite as much when you have a lot of color going on. I mean, you can definitely see them when I'm right here, but from a distance, you know, they become a little more. This shawl is so fun to knit. When I was doing the prototype, it wasn't a lot of fun. Can I just say, I was really struggling with the look. There was a stitch pattern that I really liked that I thought I should use, and then I showed them and they didn't love it, and it wasn't really showing off the color very well. It was just wasn't the best. And so I was kind of it was kind of struggle, right? I was kind of fighting the yarn and just trying to make their idea, and I just didn't feel like I was getting there, right? Like I just really wanted to honor their thoughts, and I wanted to sell yarn, right? Like I wanted to sell their yarn, and it felt like it was kind of a heart jerker for me, right? Like I was just, I really want this to turn out right, and it's so simple, it feels too simple, right? And then when it all got done, and then the new colorways came in. So this is the pumped up colorway. See how much brighter it is than the original, which was lovely, still very pretty, but it's, you know, it's a darker tone. It's pumped up. It's not quite this bright in real life. I feel like the light is making it really look shocking, and it really isn't. Can I just show you? Yeah, here we go. You know, it's just pumped up a little bit. So I decided that I needed the correct color, right? We had to use these for the pictures because you had to get the pattern out by shop hop, and so I didn't have time to get more yarn from the dyer and knit another of these shawls when the yarn was coming in right before the shop hop, right? So it's a little bit of a scramble. So I cast this on a week ago, and I just didn't realize like how much fun it was. That you start with a garter tab, which not everyone loves, but you knit back and forth on just a few stitches, and then you pick up down one side of the box, across the bottom of the box, and back up the other side to get that little garter tab going right at the top. I'll see if I can show you all really close up right there. And then the yarn overs happen right here along the edge. Can you see them all? Yeah, they're right there all along the edge, and that's my little I-cord border. So you slip one, and then you knit, purl, and then you knit, yarn over, knit in a stitch, and then knit across. And then you slip one, knit, purl, then you yarn over, and you purl back. Like, it is not hard. You have edge stitches, 5 edge stitches with a stitch marker, and you go back and forth. But then, so you have something to do at each end, but you know what to do. You don't have to you're not attached to the pattern. And then you do this little flower stitch, which is super simple to do. Knit 3 together, yarn over, knit 3 together, same 3 stitches. And it makes this little hole and a little stitch pattern. And so then you get to do that in one row. It goes pretty quick. And then you're back to stockinette, and then you do a little bit of another row. So if you're not a huge shawl person, if you haven't knit a lot of shawls, a crescent is probably the most wearable shawl style out there. It's got long tails so it can wrap and it stays on well. You can wear it a number of ways, but that's what this is. And then you get to the bottom and you just have a few little yarn overs that make the shapes of the chevrons at the bottom of the shawl pattern. So we have multiple colors, pictures out on the internet of the colorways, and then also the yarn that was available at the shop hop, which is not available for purchase unless, so I think 2 of the colorways were custom, and then the rest can go back into the Speckled Finch shop now after the shop hop. So you would just have to go out. I'll try to find out and put a note down here whether or not these yarns will be available if you just really fell in love with one of these from Speckled Finch. She's out of California. I did not know her yarn dyeing before, but I do know that they had to call her and say, okay, we need several hundred more skeins. So, yeah, a lot of love for the shawl pattern. People really enjoyed it, seeing it up close on the shop hop, and I was just thrilled that they sold so many. Okay, I interrupted myself, if that's a thing. But if you're doing that garter tab at the beginning, and you hate making a garter tab, like you just do not want to knit back and forth 6 times, those 3 stitches, and then pick up around, you can just cast on and just start going. You do not have to make that tab. You're going to have a divot there. You're going to have a little divot, but if you don't care, then the I-cord can just grow out of this side and that side. You can just skip that and just start with the, I think it's 11 stitches that are picked up, you know, when you get the garter tab done. I think you have 11 stitches on before you do the yarn overs. 11 or 13. You can just look at the pattern. But I'm just so happy that the pattern did so well. Get the pattern. It'll be available on Ravelry, Etsy, my website, and Love Crafts eventually. It will be a $7 pattern, and I will give you a discount code right here to use the coupon code PARK to get a discount if you want to go over and purchase it right now. It will be on special. Sorry, I'm being distracted by a wandering dog. He was over there, and then he went over there. He was under the table. So I'm fussing with my words because he can't decide where he wants to lay. He probably thinks it's getting close to supper time, but it's not. So sorry. But if you want to just cast on at the top of the shawl, you do not have to do that garter tab. I did include a video, a YouTube video for how to do it. And it isn't hard. You can all do it. It's not difficult. Just follow the instructions one by one, look at the video, and you'll have it done. And I would say it takes about 5 minutes to get started. And then the rest of the shawl is so simple, but you get these really nice edges, you get this really nice bottom. It's easy to do. The stockinette rows are just simple. You could take it to knitting. You could sit and knit and watch TV and have no trouble with it. So I hope you all love it. We're going to have a knit along. Yes, we're going to have a knit along. I've set aside 2 Fridays in May where I'm a Zoom meeting. And so you can start your shawl anytime you, from here on out, you can start your shawl and get started. But if you want to cast on together with everyone, we can do a cast on May 13th. We could do a cast on together. You could get it started. We could just knit together. We're going to just have a chat time together. I will announce this again on the next podcast, which comes out on the 9th of May. So I will set up a thread in my Ravelry group for the Legacy Park Shawl Knit Along. I have tons of prizes. That I have some bags coming from Sandy. I have a bag coming from Awesome Granny. I have some yarn to give away. And you can knit any iRock Knits Designs pattern. So you can knit any one of my patterns and join. If you are going to do socks, you have to do a pair. If you are going to do mittens, you have to do a pair. But you can do a hat, a cowl, one of my sweaters, any of them. The end of the knit along will be at the end of June, and so you're going to have more than 2 months to kind of finish that up. But right now I'm setting up 2 times where we can just get together and knit together and talk, and you can ask me questions, or if you're stuck on a particular pattern, or you want me to talk about through yarn choices or whatever, we can do that on the 13th and the 20th of May. And I'm going to do one like at 11 a.m. and then I'll do one at like 4 in the afternoon. So that way, if you are in a different time zone, you could if you work, you could take a lunch, and then I'll post it as if it were a podcast afterwards. So you can watch it if you can't get on those Fridays. I'm just going to try this for the first time and see kind of how it goes. I hope you all make the shawl 2 skeins of sport weight or 2 skeins of fingering. You cannot get the shawl the size that it is out of 1 skein of fingering. You'd have to have 2 skeins of coordinating fingering. I did alternate skeins. I always do when I use indie dyed yarns. There's absolutely no way that an individual person can dye yarn in tubs and have them all look exactly the same. There's just no way, right? They can put the dye in almost the exact same spot and the water in, and it still is not you're gonna get some pooling, you might get some striping or whatever. You might have a line right across the middle of your shawl when you go from one color to the other. Unless you're using actually a big box yarn, something that's dyed in giant vats all at once and it's more of a solid or semi-solid. But anything with speckles, for sure, you're going to want to alternate your skeins every other row. And there's a perfect place to do that in the pattern along the edge. So when you're coming across, I go slip one, knit, purl, and then I pick up my other yarn and I do my knit yarn over knit and drop the working yarn. Then I go over and I come back. And on the next row, knit, or slip one, knit, purl, and then pick up the new yarn right along. It happens right along this edge right here. Here's my yarn that I'm carrying up, and I'll pick that up when I come back to that marker. So it works super slick. It's easy. It's hidden. Just pick it up. It is not hard. I know people say, I hate alternating skeins. And I'm like, yeah, well, we hate purling, we hate hemming, we hate seaming, we hate, like, what? Like, it's all knitting. We can't hate it. We can't hate any of it. We shouldn't hate any of it, right? It's all knitting. It's our thing. It's the thing we love to do. I mean, you might not have, weaving in ends. I hate weaving in ends. To me, it's just like, oh, it's all knitting and I'm knitting. So it's all good. I don't hate any of it, I don't think. I mean, maybe purling through the back loop slows me down a little bit, but I wouldn't want to do every stitch purl through the back loop because that would be really slow, but there's not much I don't like about knitting. So I'm going to put these back on. Let me tell you about Yarnfest. I had applied to go to Interweave Yarnfest as a teacher for a number of years, and I never got chosen. And a lot of times it's really the big name teachers who have name recognition. And I totally understand that, right? If you're asking people to come and pay good money to go to a class, they want to make sure that those people that are coming know the teachers that are teaching. And so it's really hard to get your foot in the door at some of those big events. And then they work you really hard. Like if you're teaching at Vogue or Stitches, you are teaching 2 classes on Friday, 2 classes on Saturday, 2 classes on Sunday, and you have no downtime, right? Like you're not going out to dinner with friends and stuff because you're going back to your room to prep for the next day and get your handouts ready and go to bed. So it is a journey that I really wanted to try to teach at some of the bigger events. And so I finally got chosen. I was tickled pink that I would be going out, and then they picked the classes that I was going to teach, and then I got chosen to teach on Wednesday. And I'm thinking, gosh, that's not the day that you're going to get the best enrollment because people aren't off. It's a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday event, so you're going to really want to teach on a Friday or Saturday, right? I had the best classes. The people were so nice. I had a full class in my fixer-upper in the morning. I had 20 people, and there was no more room in the conference room we were in because they were trying to keep people spread apart a little bit. We could have done rows but we did a big U and just had spaces, a little bit of space in between. So we could have put more people in the room, but they had kind of capped it. Just, COVID. I did have people that wore masks, which was wonderful, right? I just never want to have an event become, a place where people got sick. They were just awesome. And in my fixer-upper class, I ask you to bring a problem knit. And then I talk about ways to fix, just like I do on the podcast, ways that you can fix problem things. Things that don't work out and how you can make them better. But if no one brings a project to class, then I'm just talking for 3 hours, and that's a whole lot of Cori. So I always worry when I teach that class, right? Are people going to show up? Are they going to bring a project that has a problem? And then am I going to be able to fix it, right? Like I can't fix a project that doesn't work. Like if it's really, really bad, I only had to tell one lady out of 20, you might want to rip out and start over. And then everyone in the room is so glad that it's that lady and not them, that's what I tell them, but her gauge was off. The fabric was too drapey. It was turning out gigantic. There's a lot of things you can do to fix it, but it was the yarn. She was using the yarn that was called for in the pattern, and I just thought the needle size was way too big. And that the neckline was hanging way down and the fabric was just too loose, and I just couldn't figure out a way for her to fix that. And she was great with it because she kind of had figured something had, wasn't going right. But everyone else had issues that we could fix, and I went through all of my tips and tricks, and we laughed. You know what, you guys, I love people and being in person, and I'm such a chatterbox. I don't think that's ever going to go away. I'm 61 now, and I just love to talk. Everything that I think comes right out my mouth, and I can't hold it in. It would, it'd be like telling someone, I don't know, to never go to the bathroom, right? Like, I can't not. Like, I try sometimes to be more quiet at things, and I'm physically in my head thinking, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. Let other people talk. Be a good listener. I mean, I really am. And I just always have something to say. And sometimes it's not even of importance, but I loved teaching because I can just talk about the thing that I'm passionate about and have fun and get excited. And we just had a ball. It was great. So I taught from 9 to noon. And husband was along, and that was phenomenal because we took a whole suitcase full of books, and then I had samples for both my classes, and had to have my iPad and all my cords for my afternoon class. So, I mean, we had a whole suitcase kind of full of stuff, and he helped me haul it down to the room in the morning, and he'd never been. That was eye-opening. I said, you have to go in the market. He's like, why would I go in a yarn market? I said, because you have no idea. You have never seen yarn on a wall, just like all the way around. And so then that night, Wednesday, we went out to dinner with Jeanette and George of Sun Valley Fibers, and they dye yarn, and they live on a farm in Wisconsin, and they're the Sunstroms, and they live in a valley, so it's Sun Valley Fibers. And he was really interested in finding out about their business. We talked a lot about our kids and our families, but he wanted to find out, like, how do you do this, and how do you run the business, and how do you market, and how many events do you go to a year? He said, I feel like I learned a lot. And I said, yeah. He couldn't believe that people could literally dye yarn and be on the road and sell it and kind of make a living doing that, right? Like, how much would you have to sell, and how big are the booths, and how much do the booths cost? Like, for him, it was all about the business. But he was such a help, because with my shoulder, I really can't pull anything anymore, lift stuff. It's just, I need to get it fixed, but I don't know. I just don't want to. So anyway, he came along, but then, so that was really fun to see him see, like, my name outside the door when we're in the class that I was teaching, and the conference center was beautiful. I have a little tiny video that I'm going to put in here. I wish I would have videoed more, but I was a little, busy. The carpet in this place just sang to my heart. It was orange and yellow and red, and oh my gosh. So I took a picture. I'll put it in the video of the carpet. But then in the afternoon, so I was going to teach again at 1:30, and I'd brought all my stuff down, but I used a projector for my Ravelry class. So I'm going to teach how to use Ravelry like a pro, and I need to hook my iPad into the projector in the room, and it wasn't reading it. And I have like 4 different cable kinds that I can try to plug in, and I needed the HDMI cable to hook into my iPad, and it wasn't hooking up. And this guy kind of peeks his head in the room, and they had someone come in and watch me teach in the morning. So there was a lady that came in and watched from the back in the morning for a while, because this is the first time I've ever taught for them. And that's kind of like back in the day when your principal comes in, you're a teacher, and he watches you, you get your heart goes like, oh, right? Like, I know I'm a good teacher. I'm going to do a good job for you, but I still... So this guy comes to the door, and he looks in, and he says, do you need some help? I said, well, I'm just trying to get the projector hooked up before my class, and then I'm going to go have lunch, because I just didn't want to come back and have a problem, right? And this woman comes in, and she's going to do the same thing. She's got her laptop for the class, and she just wants to make sure that she's logged in to the guest thing, and she can't get on, and I can't get the projector. And he said, I'm the CEO of Golden Peak Media. My name's Jeff. I'm happy to help. And I'm like, this is the head guy, right? Okay. He hops over the tables because they're set up in a U, and it was hard to go all the way. So he hops over the tables. He comes over. He He's trying to hook it up. We're trying to see it. We can't see the projector on the screen to see what it's saying, and we can't figure out how to pull the nozzle in the front. You know how those old-fashioned projectors, you have to have it forward and back, and we couldn't get it. So we're pushing the cart forward, and we're ripping up the tape off the floor where they have taped on the cords, where they have done like all of the things to make this classroom safe. And I'm just like, well, we can move it further forward so we can see what the screen's, because so we needed to select HDMI, and we just couldn't do it. And then he was like, I don't think you have the right cord. And I'm like, great, this is not working out, right? And I don't have a laptop. I just have my iPad and then a regular computer at home. And so I don't have a laptop to hook in, and I haven't sent it to anybody ahead of time, which is what I've done in the past. But I can use my iPad on a stand, and there are only 7 people coming to my afternoon class, Ravelry. And so I'm like, I'll just hook my stand to the edge of the table, put the iPad up, and they can sit. They all are going to have an iPad in front of them. I'm trying to tell them it's no problem. That's how I teach it when I go to a yarn store. Yarn stores don't have projectors and blank walls. So I have had to do it this way. I said, it's not, no, we're going to get it. We're going to get it. Well, he tried. Then he went and got his laptop and his cord and plugged it in, and it worked. So then he said, I really think your lightning end of your thing is bad. It's shot. And I was like, okay, no problem. I'm going to do it the other way. We move the tables around. Then I tell my husband that I'm going to run up and change my clothes, because I wore a black dress and knitted leggings for my morning class, because I had to try stuff on, my samples on. And so then I just wear this little black tunic. But for my afternoon class, I wanted to wear a knitted sweater, right? And plus, I'm sweating, because I try on samples. So I want to go up and like freshen up. So I I go down to get my lunch. I don't have my voucher. I forget my voucher in the room. I have to go back to the room, to the classroom, get my voucher, which they give to you in a goodie bag. Go back, pick up my lunch, sandwich, chips, candy bar, apple, whatever. Go up to the room, change my clothes. Ross says, I'll come back down with you. We'll get it. And then I get back down there, and the women can't get on they can't log in. They told them that to log in, somebody told somebody to log in using the word yarn vendor. Well, that didn't make sense, because the yarn vendors are probably logging into Wi-Fi with yarn vendor, and they're hooking up. They're paying for like a hotspot. So I was like, oh boy. So then this lady says, thank goodness, if you're watching, thank you. She says, I'll walk down and ask them to send the tech person. You know, in a conference center, they're going to have a tech person. And I'm like, that would be great. Because now I've got it set up to do it the other way. And here comes, the tech guy. And he was like, what's going on, right? Like, you've ripped up the projector and the projector's not working. He's like, I will fix this. That's his job, right? And this is a huge conference center. I should have known, but I had this guy helping me, right? And he was so nice. He was there for like a half an hour trying to help me. I only have an hour and a half for lunch, and now I've wasted an hour, and the people in my class can't get on. And he goes around and he gets me logged in, and he's like, do you need a power cord? You're going to have a power cord hooked in to your iPad at the same time, or otherwise you're going to be draining. And I didn't even think of that. And we got the HDMI, he got that hooked up, we got the projector, we got the Ravelry was up on the big screen, and then he went around to each of the women. There were probably 4 of them that couldn't log in, and we're thinking that the Wi-Fi connection is just bad or weak or whatever. And he's like, no, I said, we're only looking at one the front page of a website and then moving through. He's like, yeah, no, this will be no problem. And there was a lady that had like a new brand new like Android tablet that I couldn't even help her. I went over and I'm looking and I'm like, I don't even know where your settings are. Like, I can't, And then he went over and he's like, he had it all. And I said, you are the best. Like, because you're just stressed. You're there. The people have paid money for a 3-hour class. You want it to be, you just want to do your best, right? And it's your first time teaching, and he got me all set up, and it was awesome. The class went great. The Ravelry class is not the most fun thing I teach, because we're really going through Ravelry and looking at all the things that you can do, there's a lot. It's amazing what Ravelry has in the background. Things that how searches you can do,
places that you can find yarn on sale and to sell. And I mean, there is so much, but but it really is just a technology class, right? So you're not knitting, you're not learning a knitting technique, and we had a good time. People really liked it. I had a woman in there who had really hardly been on Ravelry, and her eyes were just, I felt bad because you kind of got to move along, right? But she got it, and she hung in there, and that was really nice. So I was tickled. But then by the end of that time, I'm tuckered out, right? I want to go up, sit down, put my feet up, and we go out to dinner. And then on Thursday, all I have to do is go to lunch with a friend and then do the demo in the market. And I noticed that they had a big stage set up in the market and that they had chairs around this stage. And I was like, okay, they're probably doing like a fashion show or something. No, that's where they want you to do the demo, up on the stage. Well, I'm doing a cast-on demo. I want to be down on the floor. I want people to come up and see it. They have a overhead thing that's going to look at your hands, and they have a TV, but they're struggling, the person before me, because they don't have a microphone, and the lady was not loud enough, and so now they're scrambling to bring in a microphone, bring in someone's phone with a mic so that you could clip it on. And then I got this guy's phone in my hand and I'm trying to clip it on, and there's a lag. So I go out, I'm going testing 1, 2, we're trying to set this up. And the women are like, it's not good. Like, you're loud enough, right? I said, I'll stay on the floor. I'll stay on the floor. I'm loud. I can be loud. The setup for maybe, 20 people. And I'm like, I can just walk from one end to the other. I have a half an hour to show the 2-color cast on. It's not a big deal. Sell my books, whatever. I'm unpacking my stuff. And then the ladies are like, yeah, no. The guy, they put the speaker behind, and I could hear, like, it was coming out my mouth, and then they were hearing it. It was bad. And so, and I had said to this guy, there were like 4 of them, and they were not the tech people. They were the conference people, the interweave people, and they're all trying their very best to get this done, right? And I'm just like, you guys, it's fine. It's just fine. And so I say to this guy, is this your phone? And he's like, yes. And I'm going, test. And I'm carrying his phone around, but I need my hands. So what do? I took his phone and I stuck it in my bra, and they died. Like, it was like a moment. Like, like I just stuck it up here. To me, that's not offensive. But this was like a young guy, and the woman, she was laughing so hard, but mortified at the same time. And I was like, oh, okay, that was probably a faux pas, Cori. That was probably not the thing to do, to tuck. I said, and then there were 2 people there for my podcast, and the one lady, I'm like, I do this all the time, right? I always wear my right in my bra. I listen to my pet, and she's like, yes, you do. But they don't know me. So that was, I don't know if I owe that guy kind of an apology. Like, his phone touched my skin. Like, what, like, get over it, right? But he's kind of a young guy. I think he was probably like, oh my God, she just put my phone in her. Anyway, I just talked. I was like, you guys can figure it out for the next person, right? The market opened at 10 on Thursday, and I was doing a demo at 1:30. They had all day Thursday, Friday, Saturday to get that figured out for themselves, and I was fine. I just showed it. I showed it all the way down and back, and then I don't know if it was because I'm loud or because people knew that I was teaching a cast on, but there was no room. Like, they ran out of chairs. They didn't have enough chairs set up. I had people standing in the back trying to see. And then they just filtered in. People got up because, it only takes me about 5 minutes, to kind of show people how to do it. And then I had extra yarn and needles, and people could try it. And then I went around and helped people try it. And I was trying to also hawk my book at the same time. And I thought I could kind of stick around, for a while afterwards, maybe an hour or something, and still have my books there. But the next lady was coming in right after me. So I only sold about 6 books. It was kind of a bummer that we held so many out there. But people were really nice. They loved the 2-color cast on. Everybody gets it, because if you know how to do a long tail, you can do the 2-color cast on. And I have a video on YouTube if you've never seen me do it, if you're new to the podcast or you haven't heard me talk about it. But it's, easy, it's fun, it's pretty. So that was and then we went out to dinner on Thursday night with my husband's Aunt Joan. So Ross's dad died about 12 years ago. And this was his sister. And she is 86 and lives alone in an apartment in Denver, in Denver, not far from Aurora, apparently, where so we had called ahead and talked to her daughter-in-law. Her son passed away of COVID in September, and both of her sons have passed, and her husband has passed, which is really sad. I mean, how often would that happen, right? That both your children and your husband are gone. So she said she calls herself an orphan, but we haven't seen her in like 10 years. And so we decided that was something, that's one of the reasons that Ross went along. So we went down and we found her apartment, and we went up to her apartment. We spent about a half an hour visiting with her. And then we thought that her daughter-in-law, who had been married to her son, was going to come, but then she had something going on. So she left a number, and she had written out, Cori and Ross will come at 5 p.m. And then, she had written on the back, Olive Garden, local place to go. And so we took Aunt Joan, who walks with a cane or with a walker. She wears a brace on her foot, out to dinner, and it was lovely. She's a really nice old lady, a little forgetful. She had been a nurse her whole life. She's a huge reader, very smart woman. So we visited. We took her out to dinner, which is always hard when you haven't done that with someone, because you don't know, like, can she get in the car by herself? Can she get out of the car by herself? Can she walk down to the car? Like, all these things, like, we didn't know, and it just went fine. She was lovely. We talked and tried to, reminisce a little, bring up people, but then that's sad. She is all alone. And, yeah, so that's what we did then. And then it was about an hour and 15 minutes south of Loveland, or I don't even know what direction we were going at that point. And we had kind of left during rush hour, so it took us a while to get down there. And then after we were done, then we had to drive back home. So then we were both like tuckered out, right? We were like, it was a lot. The weather was lovely, windy, but warm. It was so awesome. The sun was shining. And Ross ran outside and went for a walk, and he worked. He logged in to his meetings. So he says to me, we could do this in retirement. Like, you could teach, and I could go along, and I could just help you with your stuff. And I was like, that doesn't sound like retirement to me, bud. But he really liked it. He really liked helping, and he's a good guy. He's a good helper, and he doesn't ever want me to be in distress or uncomfortable, and so he's willing to, lift stuff off the plane and bring it in and haul the stuff and open the things, and anyway, rent the car, and yeah, it just turned out to be. And then Friday morning we got up and came home. We didn't have to leave too early. He had an early morning call. I think we left the hotel by 9:30. Then we have to drive back to the Denver airport, which is like, it's not quite an hour, maybe 45 miles or something. Return the rental car, get the luggage, take the train over. We got there plenty early because we wanted to have lunch. And a plane was on time. And then we got home by, we landed by 5 o'clock our time. And then, we waited for luggage a bit. And then we had to pick up Cody, who was at daycare. So we got to him by about 6, and we came home, and we were pooped. We were like, okay, cereal for supper, because there's no food in the house. And we just unpacked all the suitcases and left piles of laundry that you have to do. And, and I have all the samples to put away, and then I have books to put away. And, teaching is not just the time that you spend, like I spent hours ahead of time practicing, remembering my notes and printing out handouts and stuff, but then, it's all the travel that goes with it. So we had a very nice time. And if I met you there, I really enjoyed it, and I'm hoping that I'm back. Interweave does an online class. They do classes. They pick a designer, teacher, somebody every month to do 2 classes for them. So they talked to me about that, and I told him that I had these books that I really wanted to meet their book person. And so he went and got her and brought in their content creator, and he brought in their book person, this Jeff. I mean, he was He's only been on the job 4 months. He's the new CEO of Golden Peak Media, which, that's an umbrella of all of this stuff, but which includes Interweave. And their whole staff was masked the entire weekend. They were very respectful. So I got to meet this gal, and she said, "I want an email from you." And I was like, okay. So I could get that book. I could get those books written. I have them all started, but not my book ideas. Knitting. Children, grandmas. What else can I say to not give it away? But I have 3 book ideas, so we'll see if I get that going here, because I need to. Because when it's on your mind and it's the thing that you think you should do, then anyway. All right, it was my birthday. I have a couple things to show. My daughter showed up on Saturday night when we went out to the fancy place for dinner with this. Didn't she do good? She went to the yarnery in St. Paul, and she got me 2 skeins of worsted Malabrigo in the Tiger Lily. It's not that bright. It's just dark. It's not screaming orange zonker. And then she got me a little thing. And one of the guys at the yarnery, I'll have to figure out who it was, if it was Scott or whatever, said to her, "Are you Cori's daughter?" And the guy who checked her out said, "Wow, that's bright." And she's like, "You don't know my mother." The other guy knew my mother, but you don't know my mother. So, yeah, I thought that was really sweet of her to go to the yarn store and get me this skinny laminx. They're made in South Africa. A little yarn bowl bag, which you can roll down, which I thought was just darling. But then I bought something for myself, and so I just thought I should share. I know a lot of you that are on Instagram have seen this and have thought to yourself, "Oh well, Cori will buy that," and I did. So this is my orange suitcase yarn bag from Jimmy Bean's Wool. It's a special collaboration with Gigi Made It. So it opens like this, and then these are magnets here. So there's metal in the lid, and you get stitch markers, and you get a chibi needle that sticks, and then it has an inside tray that lifts out. So the tray lifts out, and then it is lined with this kind of linen-like fabric inside, and then it comes with the short handles here, and then it comes with the long strap that's this color, which is over there, and I can't reach it right now. And then it has yarn guides on each end, so you can have yarn in the bottom and your yarn coming out the side, and you can just pull from the outside, and I just thought it was great. I also ordered their needle case. So this is the needle case. It's coordinating, and it's an accordion style, and it has slots for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I just jammed all of my cords right in with it. So I fold my needles up like this. I'll show you. So I tuck them inside each other like this. Okay, so it's like this. And then I just curl it around and tuck it in and tuck it in. So it's like that. And then I can just put it in. Now, it does not have markings for what the sizes are, so I'm going to make little white labels and stick in there so I know which one is which. The handle down here that you can grip it by, and then it just zips up, and I have almost all my circular needles in. I recently went through my needles and pulled out all my carbons. I don't know where this one is right now. It's probably in a project, but I'm going to get rid of this because I don't like them, and I'm not going to use it. So I'm going to sell it or give it away or something. I'm not sure. Well, I'll probably just sell it. I'll put it on Etsy or eBay for... I had a lot of cords and stuff, so I got rid of those. And then I had a bunch of old bamboo circs from back in the day, the really light colored ones with kind of the dull tips. So I put those in a bin and gave those to the church when that church was helping the refugees. So I just put those in a bin. So now all I have left are the needles that I really like. The squares,
The knit picks with, I don't have any metal needles because I don't like metal needles. I just use wood and, mostly square. I love my square needles. So I ended up purchasing that for myself for my birthday. That's what I got. Other than that, I think that's all I have this week. Okay, I've gone on and on for about an hour and a half here, so I'll do some editing. I got a phone call. The dog barked multiple times. The husband revved up the car in the garage, so you may have some background noise. It is what it is. I live here. Thanks so much for watching. Keep it colorful. Keep your fork. You'll never regret ripping back. Buy the gravy. Waddle on. Don't complain with your mouth full. Love you all. Come in for your hug. Big hug. What's the newest catchphrase? Ban the beige. Ban the beige, baby. That's what we're going to do from now on. I love you all. Keep in touch. Go buy some sport weight yarn for the knit along. Pick up my pattern today. We're going to do some type of community gathering on those 2 Fridays in May, and we may schedule more into June. We'll see how it goes. Just let me know. Let me know what you're reading, what you're cooking. Comment in the comments below. Thanks so much for your support, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.